half the time I'm knocking on people's doors to have them move their car so I can get to my garage in my house. So if it becomes a problem with these guys, and there's currently no law to have Karina or somebody come and have a car towed away, how does this change? Or how does it become enforced? If they're blocking his house, vice versa, and there's no law, no street sign says no parking on a rear laneway, what's next? It's been frustrating. I've been dealing with this for a year. And my report came in 5 pages long of all the problems I see. And actually last week it was interesting, or a month ago, to see Charlie Luke's article in the newspaper about people parking on their front lawns throughout Port Dover. When the tourists come to town, the town is packed. When Biker Day comes to town, there's people parked on every lawn. So it's a big issue.
Through the chair, I understand the issues with parking in Port Dover, definitely, and especially on this lane. Unfortunately, the variance doesn't really change that. Right now, she could have 10 people visiting. Again, it's sort of a separate issue from this variance, so I understand that it's a problem, but we can't really address that through this variance. So
it'd have to be council who would amend the parking restrictions on that lane.
On the lane.
Yeah.
So my suggestion to you, your best step is to go to council.
With the reports that are in hand here to start out with, or
just advising them of your present concerns on with illegal parking and that it's not signed. We just have jurisdiction to deal with the variances, and she hasn't requested one for parking. It's just the dimensions of the parking space.
Right.
That's what we have jurisdiction to deal with. But council are the ones who can actually enact a parking bylaw that can be enforced.
Okay, fair enough. Thanks.
Okay. Any questions for committee?
I'll move the application.
For application AN 323, it's been moved by Larry, seconded by Dan. The committee approved the application for minor variance to construct a dwelling requiring relief of 76.72 square meters from the minimum required lot area of 360 square meters to permit a lot area of 283 square meters, 1.94 meters from the minimum required frontage of 12 meters to permit a frontage of 10.06 meters, 3 meters from the minimum required front yard setback of 6 meters to permit a setback of 3 meters, 2 meters from the minimum required rear yard setback of 7.5 meters to permit a rear yard of 5.5 meters, 0.2 meters from the minimum required distance from an interior side lot line of 1.2 meters to permit a distance of 1 meter, 0.8 meters from the minimum required depth of a parking space of 5.8 meters to permit a depth of 5 meters, and 0.3 meters from the minimum required width of a parking space of 3.3 meters to permit a width of 3 meters. The reason is in accordance with Section 44 in the Planning Act. The proposed development and requested relief is considered appropriate, minor in nature, and maintains the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, and that public input was received and has been considered as part of the deliberation for the application. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That motion's carried. Our next application is AN028, the name of 1562460 Ontario Inc. Anyone here for this application? Yeah, your name is? Anyone else for this? We'll have the planner present the report.
Thank you. An application's been received to construct a restaurant requiring relief of 7.36 meters from the maximum permitted front yard of 3 meters to permit a front yard of 10.36 meters, and relief from section 4.11.2 to permit parking in the front yard. Subject lands are on the west side of Main Street in the urban area of Port Dover. The lands are vacant and are proposed to be developed with a Dairy Queen dairy bar. Surrounding land uses are residential and commercial in nature. At the time of this report, there was no public input received. However, since then, we have received a letter, and I have received a couple phone calls from neighboring property owners. I believe the letter should be in front of committee, and I'll address it in just a moment. The subject lands are designated commercial in the Norfolk County Official Plan and Zone Central Business District in the Norfolk County Zoning Bylaw. Subject lands are under site plan control. A separate site plan application will be required as part of the planning process to examine such matters as traffic flow, parking spaces, drainage, and more. Planning staff conducted a site inspection and are of the opinion that the requested relief is minor in this instance. Within the CBD zone, buildings are permitted to have a maximum front yard setback of 3 meters. The setback requirement is in place for a number of reasons, including the enhancement of the local streetscape, consistent streetscape rhythm, and to ensure consistent streetscape building massing. Along this stretch of Main Street, many of the existing buildings have a front yard setback of 6 meters to 8 meters. The proposed front yard setback is consistent with the existing streetscape building setback. Based on the drawings submitted with the minor variance application, the applicant is proposing a large outdoor patio space within the front yard, which is necessitating the need for the increased front yard setback. Planning staff are supportive of having a patio within the front yard along the section of Main Street in Port Dover. This space will help to create and maintain more street-level pedestrian activity and promote eyes on the street, which is a positive crime prevention through environmental design and urban design principle. The proposed development will provide a new commercial use and represent a positive infill project within the commercial designation in the downtown of Port Dover. Planning staff recommends to the applicant through their site plan design process to reduce the number of parking spaces by 2 spots closest to Main Street entrance as to provide more parking or more space for landscaping and to prevent backlogging within the proposed parking lot. By removing the 2 closest parking spaces to the Main Street entrance, this will help to increase the visibility of the proposed parking lot from the public realm, which is another positive urban design feature. Furthermore, it will help to increase on-site entrance traffic sight lines for customers entering and leaving the parking lot, particularly for the first 2 spaces. The letter that you have, the committee has received before them, I'll just go over some of the concerns raised in this letter. They generally relate to the drive-through, the garbage storage area, fencing, odor control, and stormwater runoff. Currently within the zoning bylaw, we do not regulate drive-throughs, and both the drive-through and garbage storage area will be elements that planning staff will review through the site plan process. That is also the case for fencing along the rear of the business lot. Fencing will be required through the site plan process wherever this commercial property abuts a residential property. In terms of odor control, we have no planning mechanism to deal with that, but through the building permit process, there are building permit requirements for fryers and that sort of thing within a commercial kitchen. And finally, stormwater runoff and control, that's another element that will be reviewed as part of the grading and stormwater management section of the site plan. So those, the majority of those elements addressed in this letter will be discussed and looked at during the site plan process. It's the professional opinion of community planning staff that the requested relief can be considered minor in nature. Appropriate development generally meets the intent of the Norfolk County Official Plan and Zoning Bylaw, and as such, planning staff support the application and recommend that it be approved.
Thank you. Any questions from committee? Dan?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. It's been recommended that the 2 parking spots closest to Main Street be excluded. Has the applicant agreed to that?
Through the chair, they are still working through their site plan process. That recommendation is not part of the approval of this application. Planning staff are approving their application to have parking within the front yard, and that will permit what they are proposing today. The recommendation in this staff report is simply something for the applicant to take away and hopefully use through their site plan process.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Does the agent have anything to say? Yeah, ready? Ready?
It's my favorite summer place.
I have a seconder for that motion.
I'll second it.
For application AN028, I have a motion moved by Rudy, seconded by Larry, that the committee approve the application to construct a restaurant requiring relief of 7.36 meters from the maximum permitted front yard of 3 meters to permit a front yard of 10.36 meters. So it should be 7.36 meters from the maximum required front yard of 10.36 meters to permit a front yard of 3 meters, correct? Is that right?
The maximum permitted front yard is currently 3 meters. This variance would vary it by 7.36 meters to permit a front yard maximum of 10.36 meters. Yeah.
.36 meters from the maximum permitted front yard of 3 meters to permit a front yard of 10.36 meters, and relief of section 4.11.2 of the zoning bylaw to permit parking in the front yard. In accordance with section 44.1 of the Planning Act, the proposed development requested relief is considered appropriate, minor in nature, and it maintains the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, and that public input was received and has been considered as part of the application. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That motion's carried. Next application is AN026, Monica Loof. Anyone here for this one? Yeah, your names? Okay. Anyone else here for this application? We'll have the planner present the report.
An application has been received to construct a dwelling requiring relief of 50 square meters from the minimum required lot area, 450 square meters, to permit a lot area of 400 square meters, and 2.12 meters from the minimum required lot frontage of 15 meters to permit a frontage of 12.88 meters. The subject lands are 400 square meters in size and front onto the west side of Erie Street in the urban area of Port Dover. The lands are vacant and are part of a larger lot that contains a single detached dwelling and a shed. The subject lands have merged with the lot to the north but will be recreated through a separate process. Surrounding land uses are urban residential in nature. No public input has been received for this application. The subject lands are designated urban residential in the Norfolk County Official Plan and zoned urban residential type 1 in the Norfolk County zoning bylaw. The subject lands have merged within a budding lot. However, the applicant is in the process of recreating the 2 previous lots, and as such, the minor variance only applies to lot 59. Planning staff have conducted a site inspection and are of the opinion that the requested relief is minor and appropriate in this instance. The undersized lot is an existing situation, and the applicant has submitted a drawing outlining how a new dwelling would fit on the property while leaving space for parking and amenity area. The configuration would match the layout, including massing and setbacks of the lot to the north, and as well as other lots in the general area. It was noted by building and community planning staff that the deck on lot 58 to the north encroaches onto the subject lands. According to section 3.6A of the Norfolk County zoning bylaw, the existing deck is required to be 1.2 meters from the interior side yard property line. The encroachment extends nearly to the proposed new dwelling, which would limit the ability to complete maintenance on the north side of the property. The applicant is agreeable to removing the deck in order to rectify this situation. It is the professional opinion of community planning staff that the requested relief can be considered minor in nature, appropriate development, and generally meets the intent of the Norfolk County Official Plan and Norfolk County zoning bylaw. As such, planning staff support this application and recommend that it be approved subject to the attached condition.
Any questions from committee? Yeah, Dan?
Do we have to say in our decision that they must remove the deck? Or will it be there?
Through the chair, it's in the conditions on the decision.
Thank you. So you were going to move it myself?
For AN 026, I have a motion moved by Marcel, seconded by Dan. The committee approved the application to construct a dwelling requiring relief of 50 square meters from the minimum required lot area of 450 square meters to permit a lot area of 400 square meters, and 2.12 meters from the minimum required lot frontage of 15 meters to permit a frontage of 12.88 meters. In accordance with Section 44.1 of the Planning Act, the proposed development and requested relief is considered appropriate, minor in nature, and maintains the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, and that no public input was received and therefore has not been considered as part of the application. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Next application is BN001, Peter Davidson. Anyone here for this application? Yep. Your name, sorry? Okay. The planner explain the report.
An application has been received to sever a parcel having a frontage of 45.72 meters and a regular width of 47.7 meters and a regular depth of 100.98 meters and having an area of 4,668.9 square meters and retain a parcel having an area of 0.8 hectares as the creation of a lot in the hamlet of Bloomsburg. The subject lands are 4,668.9 square meters in size and front onto the west side of Old Highway 24 in the hamlet of Bloomsburg. The lands are vacant and are part of a larger 1.3 hectare residential parcel which contains a single detached dwelling and 3 accessory buildings. Davis Creek is located to the west of the subject lands and other surrounding land uses are hamlet residential in nature. Public input was received since this report was written and I will address it later in my report. The subject lands are designated agricultural and hazard lands in the official plan. No development is proposed within the hazard lands designation, which is a minor portion of the proposed lot, more specifically located along its west edge. Section 4.5.1A states, low-density residential on lots suitably sized to accommodate servicing systems shall be the main permitted use. Section 9.6.3.2C states, if a plan of subdivision is not deemed necessary, regard shall be had to the other policies within this plan and to the following criteria when considering an application for consent. Consent shall only be granted when the land fronts onto an existing assumed public road that is maintained on a year-round basis. Consent shall have the effect of infilling in existing areas and not extending existing development. Creation of the lot does not compromise the long-term use of the remaining land or retained parcel, and consents may be considered for large parcels where future development of the large parcels is to proceed by plan of subdivision. The applicant is proposing to create one residential lot which is suitably sized to accommodate private on-site water and sewage systems. The lot as it currently exists is significantly larger than the surrounding properties, so the division of the land will not result in lots that are out of character within the hamlet. This is an optimal use of land within a hamlet as it represents minor infill at an appropriate scale and will support the continued viability of the area. The lands front onto an assumed and maintained public road, and the application will have the effect of infilling in an existing area and not extending existing development. The lot creation will not compromise the long-term use of the retained parcel. The existing residence and accessory buildings are on the retained lands. The subject application conforms to the intent of the official plan. The proposed new lot and retained lands comply with all provisions of the zoning bylaw. I did receive one letter with concerns mainly regarding drainage, and so there were concerns that because this lot slopes downwards, it's part of the drainage system in Bloomsburg, but the new dwelling will require a grading plan to show how drainage will function, and that's part of the building permit application, so staff are satisfied that that will be addressed. It is the professional opinion of community planning staff that the subject application is consistent with the policies of the PPS and conforms to the official plan regarding lot creation in a hamlet. Staff support the application and recommend that it be approved subject to the attached conditions.
Thank you. Any questions from committee for planning staff? Dan?
Mr. Chairman, this is my standard question. I see there's an existing garage that'll be 1.2 meter from the new property line. That's okay?
Through the chair, that is the minimum required setback. So it meets the zoning.
Any other questions? Yvonne, do you want to come forward and speak, or?
There's a setback of 5+ meters for this property that's not the same as the two properties on either side of it. I'm curious about why this property needs a setback.
I think that's a road widening that was taken at some point. So the road in front of this land is actually wider than it is to the north or south. No, the actual land owned by the county for the road is not the road itself.
So that has to do with the culvert and the
Yeah.
drainage. That's the purpose of that.
Okay.
Like, that's the big concern here, is the natural drainage. That, like, so you're saying that's not your department, and I understand that's not your department. So do we get to see where this goes from here? Because that really affects me, right? Like, I mean, that's my tile bed, that this is, it's right there. So if that drainage is cut off, that backs that up. So,
Through the chair, there were no concerns raised by Public Works about the drainage, and that is their jurisdiction. So if they thought there was going to be any issues, they would have raised that, but they didn't comment on it, so.
it's the fact that that land naturally slopes down and nobody's ever done anything with it didn't raise any concern. The 24-inch culvert that runs under Highway 24 right to that natural slope, like that, nobody sees a problem with this building and being filled in. Like, I don't object to the severance. It's a great piece of land. It's a really good size. It fits with the village. My only concern is the natural drainage, which goes right from the field behind my house, right through my yard.
I think what Alicia's saying is that as part of the building permit application, they'll have to provide a lot grading plan that shows existing and proposed grades and where the dwelling is going, and they'll have to prove through the drainage plan how they're going to either not impact that natural drainage or accommodate it. And then they'll have to build the house and do all the drainage as per the approved lot grading plan.
So once you pass it here, then basically we just have to sit back and watch what they do? Like, we don't get notification of anything or what they intend to do or how this is gonna, like, I'm just curious,
Yeah.
right?
No, basically, they would submit a building permit, and as part of the building permit requirements, it'd be a lot grading plan that would go to Public Works for review.
Yep.
But there's no notice given to anyone
Do we have access to that?
through that.
Could I ask to see that?
I'm not sure.
Through the chair, I believe you could submit a Freedom of Information request to view the building permit. And the grading plans are reviewed by building now, so they can't build something if it's going to negatively impact the drainage in the area.
So you don't see a problem with this being drained, so I'm just supposed to rely on the,
It has to go through the process
okay.
for them to, and
So you're basically just approving to sever the lot. That's all
Yeah.
you're doing here. Nothing else, you don't care about anything else. That's right. Like, that's all that you basically worry about is whether or not it meets the severance requirements, which it clearly does, right? And I understand that. Okay. Thank you.
Any discussion or further question? Dan, seconder, Rudy? It's been moved by Dan, seconded by Rudy, that the committee approve the application for consent to sever a parcel having a frontage of 45.72 meters, irregular width of 47.7 meters, irregular depth of 100.98 meters, and having an area of 4,668.9 square meters, and retain a parcel having an area of 0.8 hectares as a creation of a lot in the hamlet of Bloomsburg. The application is consistent with the provincial policy statement and conforms to the Norfolk County official plan regarding lot creation within a hamlet, and public input was received and has been considered as part of the application. Any further discussion? All those in favor? My motion's carried. Next application is AN030, the name of Prominent Homes. Is there anyone here for this application? Okay. Anyone else? We'll have the planner present the report.
An application has been received to construct a dwelling requiring relief of 1.33 meters from the minimum required exterior side yard of 6 meters to permit an exterior side yard of 4.67 meters and 2.08 meters from the minimum required rear yard of 7.5 meters to permit a rear yard of 5.42 meters. The subject lands are 672.9 square meters in size and are bound by Lyndale Road to the north and Argyle Street to the west. The lands are a vacant lot within a plan of subdivision. Lands to the north and west are residential in nature, and lands to the east and south are vacant lots within the same plan of subdivision. No public input has been received for this application. The subject lands are designated urban residential and zoned urban residential type 1. The applicant is proposing to construct a dwelling on the subject lands. The applicant is a builder whose smallest house design does not fit on the subject lands while maintaining all of the required setbacks. Planning staff have conducted a site inspection and are of the opinion that the requested relief is minor and appropriate in this instance. The official plan encourages infill development within the urban settlement boundaries, and this subdivision is addressing part of the target set out for infill development. The proposed exterior side yard is the narrowest at the front of the property and widens as it extends back toward the next lot on Lyndale Road. This is of importance in considering whether this variance is appropriate, as the next lot will be required to maintain a front yard setback of 6 meters, which should be closely maintained by the exterior side yard of the subject lands in order to preserve a uniform appearance on Lyndale Road. The rear corner of the house has an exterior side yard setback of 8.49 meters, which will ensure that the next house can be built without having the new dwelling on the subject lands projecting in front of it. Further, a large piece of municipally owned land is located between the road and the exterior side lot line, which ensures that site triangles will not be compromised. With regard to the reduced rear yard, the situation is similar to the exterior side yard in that the rear yard widens and exceeds the zoning bylaw requirements at the south end of the property. Staff are satisfied that an appropriate amount of amenity space remains in the rear yard and no negative impacts will result from this application. It is the professional opinion of community planning staff that the requested relief can be considered minor in nature, appropriate development, and generally meets the intent of the Norfolk County official plan and zoning bylaw. As such, planning staff support this application and recommend that it be approved.
Thanks. Any questions for planning staff?
I'll move.
Secondary? For application AN030, it's been moved by Larry, seconded by Marcel, that the committee approve the application to construct a dwelling requiring relief of 1.33 meters from the minimum required exterior side yard of 6 meters to permit an exterior side yard of 4.67 meters and 2.08 meters from the minimum required rear yard of 7.5 meters to permit a rear yard of 5.42 meters. In accordance with Section 45(1) of the Planning Act, the proposed development requested relief is considered appropriate, minor in nature, and maintains the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, and no public input was received and therefore has not been considered as part of this application. Any further discussion? All those in favor? The motion's carried. Next application is AN004 in the name of 2391532 Ontario Inc. Anyone here with this application? Anyone else? We'll have the planner present the report.
An application's been received to obtain relief of 1.75 meters from the required 6-meter exterior side yard setback to permit a 4.25 exterior side yard setback. This will permit the construction of a new single-detached dwelling within the Delhi urban area. Subject lands are on the corner of Viola Court and Wilson Avenue. The lands are vacant and are proposed to be developed with a single-detached dwelling. Surrounding land uses are urban residential in nature. No public input has been received for this application and therefore was not considered as part of the recommendation. Subject lands are designated urban residential in the Norfolk County official plan and zoned urban residential type 1 in the Norfolk County zoning bylaw. Planning staff have conducted a site inspection and are of the opinion that the requested relief is minor and appropriate in this instance. The proposed reduction in exterior side yard setback will continue to permit an adequate exterior side yard for both amenity space and corner visibility triangle. The narrowest side yard setback is for the rear area of the dwelling, which leaves a large open area on the front corner of the lot. It should be noted that comments were received from Public Works and Environmental Services in this regard, and they do not have any concerns with the reduced exterior side yard. It should be noted that for safety purposes, some situations will require a 6-meter exterior side yard setback. However, on review of specific situations, staff have previously recommended reductions such as where appropriate. In general, the subject application meets the intent of the zoning bylaw. Subject minor variance application will provide a variety of residential character and form within the urban area of Delhi to meet the varying demands of characteristics of the local population. It's the professional opinion of community planning staff that the requested relief can be considered minor in nature, appropriate development, and generally meets the intent of the Norfolk County official plan and Norfolk County zoning bylaw. As such, planning staff support the application and recommend that it be approved.
Thanks. Any questions from committee? Wishes? Any seconder? For application AN004, it's been moved by Rudy, seconded by Leary, that the committee approve the application to obtain relief of 1.75 meters from the required 6-meter exterior side yard setback to permit a 4.25 exterior side yard setback to permit the construction of a new dwelling within the urban area of Delhi. This application is in accordance with Section 44 of the Planning Act. The application and development is considered appropriate, minor in nature, and maintains the general intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw, and no public input was received and therefore has not been considered as part of the application. Further discussion? All those in favor? The motion's carried. AN021, Jonquier Farms. Okay. Anyone else? I'll have the planner present the report.
An application has been received to recognize deficiencies created through severance application BNPL 2016-349, requiring relief of 0.75 hectares from the minimum required lot area of 40 hectares to permit minimum lot area of 39.25 hectares as the creation of a lot through a farm split. Subject lands are on the corner of Lower Side Road and North Road in the former township of Houghton. The lands contain several agricultural buildings and are currently being farmed. Surrounding land uses are agricultural in nature. No public input has been received for this application and therefore was not considered as part of the recommendation. The subject lands are designated in zone agricultural in the Norfolk County Official Plan and Zoning Bylaw. Planning staff conducted a site inspection and are of the opinion that the requested relief is considered minor in nature and appropriate in this instance. The proposed 39.25 hectare agricultural parcel is of a size and scale that's similar to other nearby farming operations. The proposed farm parcel would not negatively impact on-site or nearby farming operations either. Planning staff are of the opinion that the proposed minor variance application conforms to section 4.2.4A of the official plan, as both parcels would generally be 40 hectares in size or larger and therefore remain viable for agricultural uses, and are of a size that's appropriate for the type of agriculture common in Norfolk County. Furthermore, the proposed severance the approved severance, would create farm parcels that maintain flexibility for future changes in economic conditions and the type size of local agricultural operations. The proposed variance complies with the MDS formula as well. Subject lands are zoned agriculture in the Norfolk County zoning bylaw. Planning staff are of the opinion that a 39.25 hectare agricultural parcel meets the intent of the Norfolk County zoning bylaw, as the parcel will continue to be used for farming operations and it will not negatively impact the surrounding agricultural operations. It's the professional opinion of planning staff that the requested relief can be considered minor in nature, appropriate development, and generally meets the intent of the Norfolk County official plan and Norfolk County zoning bylaw. As such, planning staff support the application and recommend that it be approved.
Thanks. Any questions for planning staff?
Yes, is this required for legal purposes? Like, do we really need to do this?
Through the chair, this is a condition of a severance application that was approved last month, and it just doesn't meet our zoning bylaw. So even though it's off by just a little bit, it's still off. So that's the requirement for the variance.
Let's do it. Oh, well, maybe the folks want to speak to it, though.
A seconder for Dan's motion. Application AN021. It's been moved by Dan, seconded by Larry, that the committee approve the application to recognize deficiencies created through severance application BN 2016-349, requiring relief of 0.5 hectares from the minimum required lot area of 40 hectares to permit a minimum lot area of 39.25 hectares as a creation of a lot through a farm split. All those in favor? Carried. Any other business?
Yeah, just one thing. On behalf of Norfolk County staff and on behalf of this committee, we would just like to offer our condolences to Larry tonight, and just let you know that our thoughts and prayers are with you.
Anything else?